Predator unknown.
The first thing Sam noticed was the air. It wasn't just cold. Richmond Park in late November was always cold after dark, but heavy, almost damp, with a metallic aftertaste that lingered at the back of his tongue. The second thing was the quiet. It wasn't the ordinary winter hush that settled after the gates closed. This quiet felt arranged, like a curtain had been drawn to muffle the world. 3 cyclists cut a thin line through the dusk. Sam at the front, shoulders hunched against the wind, Alex riding a half-length off his left shoulder, scarf tails flicking at her coat, Mark trailing by 10 meters, head swiveling from shadow to shadow as if he expected a deer or something else to bolt across the path.
"We're losing light faster than I thought," Sam called back. His breath rose in short, pale ribbons and broke apart above his helmet.
"We're fine," Alex said, rolling up beside him, her front light bouncing on the gravel. "You get like this every time the clocks change."
"Yeah," Mark added, coasting long enough to clap warmth back into his gloves. "Next he'll tell us the squirrels are unionizing."
Sam didn't answer. Something about the park felt off, the way the bracken lay in flattened arcs, the strange hush in the trees. Even the fallow deer they passed near Kingston Gate had been jittery, ears pivoting toward the woods rather than toward the cyclists. Once, a stag had lifted its head and stared not at them but beyond them, into a band of dark as if waiting for it to move first. The wind came from the west and carried a faint tang under the leaf mold smell, metallic, cold, like pennies left in rainwater. It clung to the back of Sam's throat and made him drink from his bottle twice in as many minutes. They rounded a bend where the boughs knitted into a low tunnel and the last daylight thinned to something like smoke. Frost edged the leaves still clinging to the oaks. The path snapped and sighed beneath their tires. A rabbit dashed across so close the whir of its claws on grit blended with the whisper of their wheels. It vanished into the bracken without a sound. Another followed, hurdling the verge like a thrown glove.
"That's 2 in less than a minute," Sam said.
"Maybe there's a fox." But Alex's voice had lost some of its joking brightness.
"Or maybe the squirrels formed a search committee," Mark said, then glanced over his shoulder and added, quieter, "Kidding."
They crested a gentle rise, and the world opened, rolling grass gone bruised blue with evening, a stand of chestnuts silhouetted against a thin peel of sun. Ahead and left, light strobed in the near distance, cold and intermittent, not the steady amber of a street lamp, but a police car's pulse.
"Oh," Alex said, coasting. "What's that?"
2 patrol cars sat canted on the verge, hazard lights ticking, bonnets silvered with frost. Yellow tape sagged between traffic cones. Beyond it, figures in uniform moved like chess pieces, torches sweeping measured arcs over the grass. The smell reached them before the details did. Not rot, this was too fresh, but dense iron, the sharp edge of new blood that cuts through every other scent.
"Easy," Sam said, easing off the pedals without thinking. "Keep to the path."
The shape on the ground resolved as they drew closer. Human, or what had been. A tarp covered the torso and face, corners pinned down with stones. One hand protruded, palm up, fingers curled into a loose claw. Dark wetness seeped from under the tarp, the color going wrong under the blue lights.
"That's not a cycling crash," Mark muttered. His front wheel wavered. He corrected it with a small, angry twitch. "Evening," a young constable said, stepping toward them with a palm raised. "Park's closed beyond this point. I'll need you to turn back and exit at Sheen." "Sure," Sam said, bringing his bike to a stop at the tape. "We were headed to Kingston Gate." "Not tonight," the constable's voice stayed polite but clipped. "Incident in progress."
Behind him, 2 plain-clothes officers crouched over a long gouge in the turf, its edges burnished as if something heavy and wet had been dragged there and back again. Sam caught shards of their low conversation.
"Radius doesn't match canine or badger. God, I hope that's not human bite."
Sam's gaze snagged on a figure standing beyond the officers, a little apart from the lit area. The man had the hood of his parka down despite the cold. His face looked as if someone had pressed it through glass and then set it crooked. Deep, jagged scars pulled his mouth into a permanent half-sneer. One eyebrow dragged into a wary angle. He wasn't watching the taped-off body or the working officers. He was watching the trees. The man's head turned with a clean animal economy, and his eyes found Sam's as if they'd been looking for him. He crossed the grass in 3 long, silent strides. boot soles crunching frost.
You need to leave, he said, voice pitched low. Now.
Why? Alex out there.
He jerked his chin toward the tarp. Whatever did that isn't finished.
From the deeper park came a sound that tightened the skin at the back of Sam's neck. Not loud, not close. Yet somehow inside the air, a rolling throat sound that began in a growl and climbed toward a howl before breaking off too soon, as if the voice that made it had been assembled wrong. The scarred man didn't flinch. His eyes went hard the way a door clicks shut.
It hunts like a wolf, he said, but it thinks like a man, and it's here. Mark tried on a laugh that didn't fit his mouth. So not a fox, then. It hasn't been a fox for a long time. Sir, the constable said, stepping closer, you can't. Then stop me, the man said flatly, never taking his eyes off Sam. You've got 30 seconds before it circles here.
The certainty in his voice was heavier than the blue light. It carried the weight of someone who had run with bad odds and survived by knowing exactly how long he had.
Sam nodded once. All right, lead on.
They leaned their bikes against a fence post. The scarred man turned and moved fast, low, weaving between clumps of bracken and the black fingers of hawthorn. He didn't check to see if they followed. He didn't look back at the lights. They left the crisp, antiseptic scene behind and stepped into a darker country. The path narrowed, frost whitening the ruts. Branches clattered overhead when the wind found them. Somewhere close by, something larger than a fox shouldered through scrub and went still when they stopped.
Don't speak unless you must, the man said, and don't look behind you unless I say.
What? Alex began, then swallowed the question.
They moved single file along a service track that looked unused for years, a ribbon of broken tarmac swallowed by leaf litter. The smell of that faint metallic tang seemed stronger here. Once Sam nearly put his foot down on a patch of ground that looked like a puddle and wasn't. It was a depression filled with matted hair, slicked flat in a whirl. He stepped wide without comment.
This is insane, Mark whispered, more to keep his mouth from clenching than to communicate. Keep moving, Sam said. We're with him now.
They dropped into a shallow gully where frost made the grass crunch like broken sugar. Above them, the sky thinned to two shades, indigo high, a faint bruise of city glow low. The wind paused. In the second of stillness, a soft crack sounded to their right, not echoing, placed.
The man, still unnamed, raised his hand. They froze.
Something shifted again out beyond the scrub, then didn't, when the three of them leaned toward the sound. Instead, a tiny pebble pinged on the path behind them, exactly one bounce and stop. Alex's shoulders curled in on themselves like a reflex against a blow.
I didn't imagine that.
No, the man said. It wants you to turn. Then we won't, Sam said, before his brain had time to suggest alternatives.
They resumed. The man changed angles, skirting a tangle of old wire fencing half swallowed by bramble. The fence posts were spaced irregularly. Two had been shoved outward from the field as if by a slow, deliberate weight. Frost on one of the wires had been melted in thumb-shaped ovals.
Did you see? Alex started.
Keep your eyes front, the man said. It clocks where you look.
They came into a wider place where the trees thinned and the sky pressed closer. The hum of the A307 reached them in a thin thread. For a moment, Sam's shoulders loosened. Civilization had a sound, and that sound usually meant rules. He realized he'd been missing that hum.
So, Mark said, the word little more than breath. You gonna tell us your name? Reeves. He said it without turning. Sam offered. This is Alex Mark. Reeves grunted, acknowledgement, not interest.
What was that at the tape? Alex asked carefully. The way you said 30 seconds like you'd timed it before.
Because I have.
No one filled the silence after that. They walked. Twice, a sharp, sweet smell like crushed fern slid across the wind and left as quickly. Reeves altered their path by a few degrees each time without explanation, steering them away from a thicket, then away from a coppice that held nothing but shadow. They crossed a service lane and skirted a low building, sunk half into the ground. No lights showed under the door, but there were boot prints in the frost leading to it and away, fresh, overlapping, as if whoever had made them had changed their mind at the threshold and gone back the way they'd come.
What even is this place? Mark asked in a husk. Feels like we've walked out of London and into one of those nature programs where the camera's on night mode and something always dies. Sam almost said not tonight, but bit it back. Promises were cheap currency and worth less in the dark.
Reeves cut left along a low fence. In the beam of Sam's headlamp, the wire glowed like a wet string. The posts leaned inward, where something had pressed through weeks ago. Someone had set them upright, with new guy lines that bit into the bark. Something had taken the hint and simply stepped around 3 posts further along, flattening the heather and leaving a shallow, broad print in mud that refused to hold edges.
Alex slowed by the print in spite of herself. That's not dog.
No, Reeves said, it isn't. He didn't stop.
They angled toward a copse that held on to the last of the twilight like a secret. Sam counted breaths and steps in the way he did on hard climbs. 30 paces, breathe, 30 more, breathe slower. A barn owl drifted past them at head height, pale and silent. It checked itself midair, tilted its heart-shaped face down into the scrub below as if deciding whether to dive, and then changed its mind and ghosted away. Sam had never seen an owl refuse a mouse the way a cat might refuse a plate left on the floor by someone it didn't trust. The wrong sound returned, closer, softer, a smear of tone between growl and hum. It came from the side and then from ahead without having crossed the space between. Reeves didn't change speed. He lifted his left hand, fingers spread, and flattened the right against his own thigh, a sign to keep line and lock pace.
Sam matched the cadence without thinking. He realized he'd been waiting for someone to tell him to run or hide, and that neither would have been the right instruction.
I keep thinking I can hear, Alex breathed.
You can, Reeves said. It wants you to think you can hear it in 3 places. When you look for one, the other 2 move closer. Mark swallowed. So don't look anywhere. Look where you mean to go.
They reached a line of low outbuildings in a shallow hollow. Ranger sheds from the look of them, roofs thick with leaf litter, padlocks bright where hands had polished them recently. Reeves slowed for the first time. He studied the dark between the sheds, the drain that ran past them, the thin channel of crushed frost that cut along the side like a path made by something that moved low and often. He turned his head a fraction and spoke without volume.
It's worse in wind, he said. Noise gives it cover. But even quiet's not safety. Quiet's just its other trick.
You keep saying it.
What word do you want?
Dog, big cat, something we can...
You want a name so your brain has a shelf to put it on, Reeves said. Put it on predator and keep moving.
They edged past the sheds. Sam's light skimmed across a stack of old fencing. The lowest plank was scored with neat parallel grooves, as if a giant hand had tested its nails there. Not a frantic clawing, but a carefully spaced measure of grip.
Mark saw it and hissed between his teeth. Great, braille for psychos. Eyes front, Sam said, and heard the steadiness in his own voice with surprise.
The lane beyond the sheds leveled out and spilled them toward a stretch of open park where the grass lay in a thin skin of white. The sky above that open space was darker, the stars frost-sharp. Somewhere not far off, a stag coughed, deep, abrupt. Another answered. The sound was wrong in the same way the earlier howl that wasn't had been wrong, a note off by a fraction, as if the mouth that made it had been taught by echo rather than blood. Reeves angled away from the opening and kept them under the trees. Sam felt relief and disappointment. His body wanted sky, but his skin wanted cover.
My hands are shaking, Alex said to no one in particular. I'm not cold.
You're doing fine, Sam said. He meant it. Her pace hadn't faltered once.
They moved in that careful, constant way for longer than time felt like. Sam's world shrank to the cone of his headlamp, to Alex's breath beside him, to Mark's muttered invective every 10th pace when his boot found a hidden rut. The hum of the A307 came and went with the wind. The copper taste did not. They dipped into another shallow stream bed, dry and paved with pale stones. Halfway across, Reeves stopped so suddenly that Sam nearly walked into him. Reeves knelt by a stone that had a smear of dark on it, like someone had brushed it with a thumb.
Fresh, he said. Blood? Sam asked, though the metallic bite in the air had already answered him. Something bled there. He pointed 3 meters up streambed to a spray of fine dots that a casual eye might have mistaken for mud. Then there, he added, indicating a scuff where 2 stones had been knocked into a cleaner circle. Then nothing, not because it healed, because it stopped letting it out.
Stopped letting?
Not now, Reeves said, and he rose smoothly and moved on.
They skirted a thicket where holly made dark borders. A blackbird panicked out of it and skittered wing low across the ground for 10 meters before finding air. Wrong behavior, frantic and nearly silent. A second later, the blackbird cut left as if it had changed its mind mid-flight, then smacked into a low branch and tumbled into grass. It lay there, throat working. Reeves steered them away without looking at it.
Mark's voice cracked on a whisper. It made the bird do that. It made you notice it, Reeves said. Same thing.
They came to a kink in the path where old iron railings ran alongside for 20 meters, relic of some boundary that no longer mattered. Frost made the rails glow a dull white. Reeves paused at the far end and touched one of the uprights with 2 fingers. The frost there had melted in a neat oval, as if a warm hand had rested on it and then lifted in the last half hour.
Alex's breath trembled. "Reeves," she said, testing the name. "How did you know we had 30 seconds back there?"
Because I was here when the first carcass was found, he said. Ranger called it in as a poached deer. It wasn't. I didn't see it the first night. I heard what you heard. The second night I waited. 30 seconds after the patrol moved their lights, it came to check the quiet. He rubbed the oval on the rail with his thumb until the frost squeaked. It cycles the space. Every loop teaches it something about you. So you've been hunting it, Sam said. Reeves didn't answer. The half sneer that the scars made of his mouth didn't change, but something like exhaustion passed under his eyes and was gone.
The wind freshened and made the bracken clack like loose teeth. Somewhere behind them, a pebble pinged again, 2 hops this time, as if whoever threw it had a better angle now. Reeves didn't raise his hand to halt them. He only said,
"Don't take the bait." "Wasn't planning to," Mark said, though the words came out too quick to be reassurance.
They approached another low building, this one made from poured concrete and sunk half into a berm. A dead strip light hung inside the small porch like a tongue. The door had a keypad and a keyhole. A narrow window at shoulder height was wired glass and black from within. Reeves scanned the area quickly, roofline, corners, the line of the berm, and then ignored the door entirely, angling past it toward a stand of willow that hid a culvert.
"Where are we going?" Sam asked. He kept his voice even and low, as if loudness would cost something he couldn't afford. "A quieter way," Reeves said. "The main path dips toward the river but gives it 4 angles. I want 2.
2 to watch or 2 to offer, Alex asked.
Both."
They moved along the willow fringe. The culvert's mouth was a corrugated iron pipe, shallow, dry this time of year, filled with leaves and a smell like wet coins. A thin singeing mark ringed the rim where frost had melted and refrozen in a ridge. Reeves put his palm just above it, not touching, and nodded to himself like he recognized a handwriting.
"Do you live out here?" Mark asked. "Or are you auditioning to be the park's Batman?" "Volunteer call team," Reeves said. "Invasive control. I know the back ways."
"You work with rangers?" Alex asked.
"Sometimes." His tone closed that door gently but firmly.
The hum of the road grew clearer. Between the trunks, Sam could see the suggestion of streetlight reflected on wet tarmac. They were angling toward a service gate, he realized, a narrow exit onto a road that led downhill to the river. Relief loosened his stomach a notch, and tightened again when the wrong sound came back from their front, the space they were walking into. Reeves slowed 2 steps, then resumed without looking left or right.
"It knows this lane," he said. "It used it last week to come in." "How do you—" Sam began, then stopped himself. He didn't need a sermon on evidence. The park had been giving them a class in it for the last half hour.
They reached the service gate, high chain link, topped with 2 lines of tensioned wire that hummed faintly in the wind. Beyond it, the thin ribbon of a road shone wet under a far lamp. Reeves didn't touch the gate. He scanned the posts, the hinge line, the ground immediately outside, and then the ground inside where they stood. On their side, the frost was unbroken, but for their own tracks. On the other, a wash of frost had been wiped in a broad, low arc, like a tail, or a coat hem had passed there very close to ground.
"Not this way," he said. "You just said," Mark started, then cut off as Reeves held up 2 fingers and drew them together until they touched. A signal. Squeeze the line tight.
The hum of the wire deepened a fraction and then returned. No wind had changed. The air had.
Alex's hand found Sam's sleeve without looking for it. I keep seeing movement at the edge of my eyes, she said in a voice that barely made air, like heat above a road, but it's cold.
Eyes on Reeves, Sam said.
Reeves led them away from the gate and along the fence until they reached a place where it bellied outward around a sapling. He crouched, tested the wire with a forearm, then slid under with a quick wriggle and came up on the other side, already scanning the verge. He didn't invite them. He assumed they would follow. They did. They crossed the quiet road at a diagonal, not at the straightest point, and dropped toward the river along a hedge where the frost lay thicker as if the night had gathered there early. The faintest smell of algae drifted up from the water. Somewhere behind them, farther than a throw, closer than safety, a stone clicked off metal, a hollow little note like a door bolt, tested without being drawn.
Mark's composure cracked a hairline. I swear if that's you with pebbles. It can throw, Reeves said, not hard, just precise.
Why?
To make you look. First lesson's free, the second costs skin.
The path kinked and fed them into a corridor of hawthorn and elder. The branches made a black tunnel with scorched-looking edges where ice had melted in clean arcs. Sam's lamp picked out dragged lines in the frost, as neat as chalk on slate, running parallel for 10 meters before stopping abruptly at a place where the grass lay depressed in a long, low oval.
What is that? He asked before he knew he would. Something that lies down to listen, Reeves said.
They came to a small footbridge over a drainage channel, the wood slick with ice. Reeves crossed first, weight low, and waited until Alex and Mark were over before he stepped off the far end. He stared into the water a long second. The surface was dark and slow and held a perfect reflection of the sky. Sam saw 3 stars. He saw Reeves's face, thinner and older in the black mirror, the scars like white wires. He saw the suggestion of a second reflection behind his own shoulder, the kind of double image you get from old glass. He didn't turn. He concentrated on a knot in the bridge rail until the impression of the second reflection felt silly, felt like fatigue.
How much further? He asked. Close, Reeves said. There's a maintenance cut through to a ranger bunker down by the utilities road. Steel door, no windows. We'll breathe there and decide whether we go to the station or past it.
Past?
If the station's lights change, we don't run to them. We make our own.
They walked. The smell of the river grew stronger, algae and cold metal. Twice the wrong sound lifted at their side like a throat clearing behind glass. Once the wind dropped out completely and left them in a dome of soundless air. In that bubble, a faint ticking traveled through the ground under Sam's boots. Not rhythm, but sequence. Tick, 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 tick. He would have called it a clock if it had been honest about time.
Mark had stopped cracking jokes and started counting silently with his lips, and Sam was glad of it. Counting made a fence inside the head.
They reached a utilities track edged with chain link. A sign on the gate warned against unauthorized access, and below it, someone had scratched a smiley face into the paint and then gouged a vertical line through one eye as if to cancel it. Frost had thickened on the gate's lower bar where cold pooled. Reeves pressed his fingers to the padlock, then to the wire near it, then sniffed his fingertips.
Left, he said. There's a cut in the fence 5 posts down.
Do you always keep this many escape routes in your head? Alex asked, and only when she'd asked did she realize she wanted the answer. People who kept maps like that were the ones she trusted when things went wrong.
Only in places that earn them, Reeves said.
They slipped through the cut and into a strip of scrub that backed the bunker. The bunker itself was just a slab of concrete with a door as reassuring as a safe. A keypad glowed a dull red in the dark, like a sleeping eye. Reeves scanned the ground one last time. His pupils were very big. He put 2 fingers to the side of the door and left them there long enough for his breath to turn to vapor in the still air. Then he took a battered key card from a cloth lanyard inside his parka and swiped it. A heavy bolt thunked. He cracked the door without opening it, listening. The wrong sound rose at the far edge of hearing and sat there, waiting.
In, he said.
They filed through. The door swung to. Reeves caught it on the heel of his boot and eased it shut without letting the latch click loud. The air inside the bunker felt 5 degrees warmer and smelled of oil, damp coats, and cold metal. A strip light buzzed into a weak, warm amber that made the concrete look like old bone. For a breath, they were human again, A room, a door, four walls that obeyed.
Alex leaned her head back against the wall and let out a breath that was almost a laugh and almost a sob.
Sam looked at Reeves. "Thank you," he said. The words felt insufficient and also like the only currency that mattered just then. Mark touched his temple to dislodge ice from the brim of his hat. "I'm officially upgrading you from sketchy stranger to tour guide." Reeves didn't smile. The scars made smiling a negotiation anyway. He listened to the door as if it might learn to speak. "We're not done," he said. "It follows lines, tunnels, fences, sight, sound. It'll try the weak seam first."
What weak seam? Alex asked.
"The one people make when they decide they're safe."
The strip light flickered. Its color shifted warmer, then steadied. The change made the shadows on their faces deepen. Reeves crossed to a steel rack and checked a toolbox as if verifying that gravity still worked. Sam let his shoulders ease one notch. The relief tasted guilty. He didn't want to ask the next question, but did.
"What exactly are we dealing with?" Reeves looked at him. His eyes had the tired polish of someone who'd been awake for too many nights and lost something he still counted. "A hunter that doesn't waste motion," he said. "Faster than it looks, smarter than you want. It hates clean white light more than warm light. It plays with angles and with the way your brain ties sound to sight." He touched his cheek where a long pale ridge crossed it. "And it marks what it wants. If you feel your coat hem brush when there's no wind, you don't step out of the light again."
Alex swallowed. That happened to you.
"I'm here," Reeves said. It wasn't a yes, it wasn't a no, it was a ledger entry.
A faint grit sound stroked the outer threshold. Not a knock, not a scrape. The weight of something careful testing the door where the seal would tell it the least. Reeves raised one finger to his lips. The bunker held its breath. The sound stopped.
"It won't push," he said softly. "Not yet." "So what now?" Sam asked. He kept his voice level, not because he felt level, but because level sounded like a plan, and a plan felt like traction. "Now we move smarter than it does," Reeves said. "There's a service tunnel that parallels the bridleway. It takes us to the utilities road near the station. We'll learn whether the lights there are our lights or theirs." He looked to Alex. "You got a camera?"
She blinked, startled by the pivot. "Yeah, compact body in my pack. I was shooting by the river earlier." A small speed light, recycles slow at full power.
"Half power then," Reeves said. "Short bursts, cool spectrum, don't cook it. It hates white more than amber." Mark let out a thin, incredulous breath. "We're going to flash it?" "We're going to make it misjudge distance," Reeves said. "If it loses depth for even a second, we buy a second."
The strip light trembled again, buzzing harder. The color warmed further toward orange. The hair along Sam's forearms lifted, as if a small charge had crawled across his skin.
"It doesn't like the white," he said. "It doesn't like what white makes of its edges," Reeves said. "Be ready."
He unbolted the inner door that led down. Cold air licked their ankles. The tunnel below breathed a faint smell of old water and machine oil. Reeves took a battered LED flood from the rack, but didn't switch it on. He slung its cable over his shoulder like rope. He looked at each of them in turn. Alex first, then Mark, then Sam. Whatever he read in their faces was enough.
"Keep line," he said. "Eyes where you mean to go. If you feel something touch you, step into the light, not out of it."
Into, Alex repeated, as if tasting the word for hooks.
Sam nodded.
They stepped into the tunnel's mouth, the bunker door easing shut behind them like a held breath released. The concrete swallowed their footfalls. Somewhere far off, the city hummed in its sleep. Behind the closed door, frost formed a neat oval on the outside handle where a warm palm had not quite touched. And in the hush between one sound and the next, something patient realigned its circle. They followed Reeves down into the gully, the frost crunching louder than seemed safe underfoot. The incline was gentle at first, then steeper, forcing them to plant each step with care. Above them, bare branches clawed at the sky. The distant blue strobes of the police were gone now, swallowed by the dark. The air was thicker here, smelling of cold soil and something else. Organic, faint, but growing stronger with every step. It wasn't the sharp iron of fresh blood this time. It was the damp, almost fungal scent of something that had been dead longer than it should have been.
"Keep your eyes forward," Reeves whispered without looking back. "No what a heavy suit he won't core war."
Sam didn't need telling twice. The urge to glance over his shoulder was almost unbearable, but the memory of that strange, wrong howl held him steady. Alex stayed close to him, her breath quick and shallow. Mark trailed a little behind, his boots occasionally skidding on loose frost. Every slip made Sam's teeth clench, waiting for the sound that would answer from the darkness. When Avenue I timed in trace, they reached the bottom of the gully where a trickle of black water wound through the grass. Reeves turned sharply left, following it downstream. His pace was quick but measured, as though he knew exactly how long they could push before their noise would betray them. In steps we route to.
You'll see a fallen oak ahead. Step over it, don't go around. Ground softer there, quieter.
Sam spotted it, a massive trunk lying at an angle, mossed over and slick with frost. He swung a leg over, planting his foot carefully on the other side. The ground was springy but muffled, dead leaves cushioning each step. They walked like that for several minutes, a silent procession. Somewhere behind them, a twig broke, not close but not far either. Reeves stopped dead, one hand raised, head tilted. Sam held his breath. The sound came again, this time the soft thud of something heavy landing on damp ground. Then nothing. Steen poingen er kwan.
It's trailing, not chasing, testing us.
Testing us for what?
Weakness, or arjabong.
They moved on. After what felt like an eternity, Reeves led them into a dense stand of holly. The branches were thick, leaves serrated and glistening in the low light. They pushed through, thorns snagging at their clothes, until the holly gave way to a shallow depression ringed by low earth banks. Nestled into the far side, almost invisible until they were on top of it, was a camouflaged tarp stretched over a crude frame of branches. Reeves pulled one corner aside and gestured them in. Arme, it's Dreinsteck 9.
What is this? Sam asked, ducking under. Home, for now.
Inside, the space was barely large enough for the four of them to crouch. The ground was dry, covered in a layer of flattened grass. In one corner, a battered metal trunk sat half buried under a blanket. Reeves knelt beside it, flipping the lid open with a creak. Inside were a hunting rifle, 2 boxes of ammunition, a sheathed machete, and a handful of objects Sam couldn't immediately identify. Metal traps, coils of wire, a roll of duct tape. Yunoling Tusep?
You've been living out here? Watching, waiting. Reeves checked the rifle, slid around into the chamber, and set it within easy reach. It's not the first time this thing's been in the park.
What is it? What is it?
Reeves' scarred face was unreadable in the half-light. I don't know what it started as, but it's smart enough now to pick when and where it hunts. Doesn't waste energy. Never seen it hit the same place twice in one night. It's patient. Mark swallowed. And you think it's waiting out there for us?
I think it knows you're here, and it's wondering if you'll make a mistake. They settled in, huddling against the cold. Outside, the wind had dropped, leaving the night oppressively still. Every so often, Reeves would tilt his head, listening, and Sam realized he could hear it too, a faint, irregular rhythm, like the slow padding of feet in damp leaves. It was always there for a few seconds, then gone.
Time stretched. Minutes bled into an hour. Alex's breathing steadied beside him, but Sam couldn't rest. The tarp's faint flapping with each shift of wind began to feel like a countdown to something. When the first sound came, a deep, wet sniff, followed by a chuffing exhale, Sam's body went rigid. It was close, right outside. Reeves didn't move, didn't speak. His hand rested lightly on the rifle. The sniff came again, slower this time, followed by the faint scrape of claws on earth. Then, so softly Sam thought he'd imagined it. A low, rolling growl that vibrated in his chest. Reeves's eyes flicked to Sam and he mouthed a single word, wait. The third sniff was louder, closer, as though the tarp itself was the only thing between them and it. The low growl that followed carried weight, an unspoken claim over the darkness around them.
Get ready, Reeves whispered, his breath barely moving the air. Something nudged the tarp from outside, slow, deliberate, dragging the canvas just enough to make the poles creak. Alex's hand shot to Sam's arm, nails biting through his sleeve. Mark's breath came fast, shallow, almost a wheeze. Ordy strength, Orn. The shape of a head pressed faintly against the tarp, snout elongated, ears pricked forward. It stayed there for a moment, the fabric stretching with the contour of its skull. Then, nothing. Did it leave? Mark mouthed.
The answer came as the tarp ripped sideways in a blur of claws and teeth. Reeves fired. The blast inside the enclosed space was deafening, the muzzle flash burning a snapshot of the beast into Sam's retinas. Gray fur matted with frost, eyes pale and too large, a jaw that seemed to hinge too far. It screamed, not like a wolf, not like anything Sam had ever heard. A harsh, layered sound, part roar, part shriek. The force of it rattled his teeth.
Out! Move! Reeves barked, jamming another round into the rifle. Any marmigmorn.
They scrambled out of the hide, boots slipping in frost and loose soil. Sam grabbed Alex's hand, dragging her toward the bank, while Mark stumbled after them. Behind, Reeves fired again. Another blinding flash, another split-second glimpse of the predator recoiling into the dark. They ran uphill, the gully's sides closing in. Sam's legs burned, breath tearing at his lungs. A crash of branches sounded behind them, followed by the rhythmic thump of something giving chase. A session for Warwin's Smulling.
It's coming, Alex cried, voice high and ragged. Is smalt the twant tide?
Reeves's voice cut through. Left! Into the trees! They swerved into a stand of oaks, the ground uneven, roots snaring their boots. The predator was close enough now that Sam could hear its breath. Harsh, wet pulls of air, punctuated by low, rumbling growls. Reeves stopped suddenly, spinning to face the sound. He fired once, twice, in quick succession. A yelp followed, high-pitched and furious, and the sound of retreating footsteps pounded away into the darkness. Muro all and der Tank. They stood there, gasping, the smell of gunpowder hanging sharp in the cold. Jan.
Did you hit it? Sam asked, his voice shaking. Clipped it, won't stop it for long. Reeves's eyes scanned the trees. We move now. There's a service road about half a mile east. If we make it, we can get out of the park.
They moved quickly, but cautiously, every sound magnified in the still night. Sam's ears strained for any sign of pursuit. The thought of the things circling ahead, cutting them off, sat like ice in his gut. Halfway to the road, Reeves raised a hand. Everyone froze. Ahead, in the faint spill of moonlight, was a smear of blood on the frost, dark and fresh. Ashas Minilemer.
It's bleeding, and it's ahead of us. Or wone. Before anyone could respond, a shadow detached itself from the trees to their right. The predator moved low and fast, a blur of gray fur and pale eyes, closing the distance in seconds. Reeves shoved Sam hard. Down! The beast launched itself, hitting Reeves full in the chest. They went down in a violent tangle, the rifle skittering across the frost. Claws raked against Reeves's jacket, teeth snapping inches from his throat. Monorpoing, Clastor.
Sam didn't think. He lunged, grabbing the rifle. It was heavier than he expected, cold metal biting into his palms. He turned, fumbling for the trigger. Reeves twisted under the beast, forcing its head sideways. Shoot it! He roared. Sam aimed at the pale glint of its eye and pulled the trigger. The blast lit the trees, the recoil slamming into his shoulder. The predator shrieked, staggering back. Reeves rolled free, scrambling to his feet.
Run, now!
They bolted, the predator thrashing behind them. It followed for 20 yards, then stopped, its breathing fading back into the trees. They didn't stop running until the dark shape of the service road's barrier appeared ahead.
We made it, Sam began.
A shape dropped from the embankment above, landing in the middle of the road. Not the predator. This shape was human. A man in dark clothing, holding a long, curved blade that caught the moonlight. His face was smeared with dark paint, eyes wide and wild. Daige in session.
You shouldn't be here.
Reeves stepped forward, rifle raised, out of the way. The man smiled, showing too many teeth. It's not me you need to worry about. He glanced past them toward the trees, and that was when Sam heard it again, the low, wrong howl, closer than ever. The man in the road didn't flinch when Reeves leveled the rifle. He held the curved blade low and easy, like an extension of his wrist, and smiled the way some people do when they've slept rough too long to remember the right number of teeth to show.
You shouldn't be here. Move, Reeves said, steady now.
The man cocked his head at the trees. It's clocking you. It likes people who stand in lines. His eyes slid to Alex, then back to Reeves. It marked you at the bunker door. Whole circle's yours now. Sam stepped forward before the words could work under Alex's skin.
We're leaving. You should, too.
The wrong howl lifted, closer than it had any right to be, and cut off mid-note. The man's smile vanished. For a heartbeat, his blade hand twitched toward the verge.
Duck your heads.
Sam didn't argue. He dropped, dragging Alex with him. Mark followed a blink later. Reeves pivoted, rifle already rising. Something rushed the verge, low and fast. A grey smear that ate the distance in 2 impossible strides. Reeves fired. The blast split the night. The thing juked left in the muzzle flash and hit the road anyway, skidding, claws scraping sparks. Its eyes caught the street lamp glow and flashed a cold coin pail.
Alex!
She had the speed light in her hands without knowing when she'd grabbed it. Thumb on, dial half power. She raised it toward the gray and fired.
White burst tore the scene to stark noon. For an instant, the world was a high-contrast photograph. Reeves braced, Mark flinching behind his forearm, the stranger's blade at a guard, and the predator frozen mid-crouch, its face thrown flat by the light. A second eyelid shuddered across each eye like wet glass. The thing recoiled, not from brightness alone, but from spectrum. The street lamp's old sodium had left it comfortable. The flash did not.
Again.
Pop, pop, pop. The cool white rectangle stuttered at 10 hertz. The predator jerked between frames, too far left, then too far right, its depth judgment slipping. It retreated 2 paces, bile yellow streetlight washing back over it like a comfort blanket.
It hates white, Sam said, breath misting. Not just light, white. The stranger slid sideways, never taking his eyes off the verge. You're not the first to say that. His blade tip dropped the smallest degree. Station's downhill. If you make it to the doors, stand in the white. Who are you? Mark demanded. Someone who learned late. He stepped back toward the embankment as if melting into it. Go.
They ran. The service road fell away toward the river, frost squealing under their boots. Alex fired the flash once every few strides, painting the hedges with brief surgical daylight. Each burst bought them a meter the predator didn't want. It shadowed them along the tree line, never fully committing, keeping to the amber pools where the old lamps softened edges. Twice, it surged. Twice, Alex stung it back. Sam watched the recycle indicator, timing their sprints to the breath between charges.
2 more shots before it cooks, Reeves warned.
I know. Her hands burned on the plastic body, the smell of warming electronics sharp as ozone.
The police station bulged out of the dark like a ship's prow, windows square with fluorescent rectangles. For a moment, relief rose in Sam's chest. Then the lights browned, dipping from clinical white to tired amber and back. Twice. The hairs along Sam's arms lifted.
It's playing with the power.
They hit the steps at speed. Reeves banged the rifle butt against the glass. The automatic doors yawned. They spilled into warmth and linoleum and stale coffee and the smell of forms in triplicate. 4 heads turned. A desk sergeant stood up so fast his chair barked.
Lock the doors, Sam snapped, surprising himself with the authority in it. Something's tracking us. It hates cool white. Do you have LED floods? A generator? The sergeant's eyes flicked to the rifle, to the flash in Alex's fists, to Reeves's scars. He didn't argue. We've got 2 sight lamps in stores. Ryobi Jen in the garage. He jabbed a finger toward a side door. Hughes, Patel, with me.
Beyond the glass, a wheelie bin rolled a neat arc across the pavement and stopped facing the doors. No wind.
Reeves moved to the entry, set the rifle down, and shouldered a riot shield. Shields in front, lamps high, do not chase, make it come to us.
Alex sagged against the counter for a 3 count, then ejected the hot AA pack and slammed a fresh one in with shaking thumbs.
The sergeant returned with a yellow LED flood, cable coiled like a sleeping snake. Where? Face the doors, high angle, cool white, steady. Then we take 2 more down to the boathouse. Boathouse, water gives mirrors. and a sluice gives a box.
The station lights dimmed again, amber then white, like the building had blinked. A charity poster on the wall fluttered without a draft. Something tapped the glass, polite, patient.
Mark lifted a second shield. "Hate this thing," he said, not to anyone.
They formed a block, 2 officers with shields up front, Reeves on the right with his, Sam left, the flood shouldered like a cannon, Alex in the pocket with her flash, the sergeant a step back with keys jangling like old nerves. The doors hissed open. Night pressed its face to the threshold. Reeves clicked the flood live. A sheet of white laid itself over the pavement. The bin's silhouette sharpened. The shop fronts across the street turned surgical. For a heartbeat, the beam found texture at knee height, a ripple like heat haze where the air should have been still. It flattened behind a bollard as if bones had learned to fold.
"There."
Pop, pop, pop. Alex painted the bollard. The ripple misjudged the bollard's edge by inches and snapped back.
The sergeant swallowed. Right keys, lamps, boathouse. Decision put his shoulders in order. "Hughes, with the generator, Patel, get the second flood. Ormoth, Persbuff, Tunyevasquan."
They moved as a unit into the night, the floodlight's beam soaring across parked cars and hedges. The Predator stayed off axis, skirting the periphery, letting the old sodium lamps bathe it in safer color. Twice it threw pebbles, once at a shutter to their left, clang, and once at a bus stop sign to their right, ting, trying to drag their eyes in the beam. Reeves didn't bite.
"Eyes where we mean to go," he said, and the words steadied Sam's legs.
At the river, the boathouse crouched over black water, municipal green door and all. The sergeant fumbled the ring. Reeves took it silent and found the right key by touch. Inside, the smell of rope and algae. Dust made halos in the flood's glare. Reeves dragged a workbench to center, set the LED atop it angled low, and ran cable back to the generator outside.
Sam primed the gen. It caught on the second pull, then coughed, then steadied. The white sharpened to operating theater.
Alex clipped the flash to a cold shoe bracket, spare AAs fanned in a pocket like cards. Sweat pricked her hairline despite the cold.
Reeves went ritual quiet. Rules: it tests edges first, it touches to mark. If it marks you, you don't leave the light. If the power dips, we strobe at 10. "Sergeant, sluice handle?" The sergeant found it in a locker, a steel lever that looked like it belonged in a different century. "Manual only." "Perfect." Reeves set it in the socket with a clunk. "On my call, flood the floor to ankle depth. Mirrors everywhere. Make it commit."
Outside, the generator's note wavered, not with fuel, but with attention. It felt watched. The boathouse's timber sighed as the night leaned on it. The wrong sound rose under the threshold, like a throat priming a song. Sam's cuff brushed his ankle. He looked down. Nothing there. He took a breath, the way you take a promise, and stepped deeper into the light.
"It's marking," he said.
Then it wants you, Alex said, steady and furious. So it gets me instead of you seeing it. She raised the flash and bared her teeth at the dark. "Come on."
The latch lifted by itself. A slice of river night opened, cold rolled in. The flood's white laid fences across the threshold, clean, unforgiving geometry. A shape leaned into the light like a low tide testing a rock. Fur that wasn't fur, more like hair laid over mesh. The second eyelids blinked against the white.
"Not yet," Reeves murmured, hand raised to still them. "Let it choose."
It chose low, ducking to creep under the beam, the edge play. An officer stamped to block. Claws kissed the shield's rim and snagged with a hook sound that lifted the skin along Sam's arms.
"Sluice, wait," Reeves said. "Alex."
Pop, 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 pop. She strafed the threshold. The creature flinched, misjudging the floor by inches, one forelimb skidding. Its chest hit the wet boards with a hollow slap.
The sergeant put a boot on the lever. "Say when." Reeves's eyes never left the thing. "When it puts weight inside."
The Predator gathered itself, gauging the rhythm of the floods, learning the sweep of the beam. It extended one claw tip, then another, testing mirror, testing light, testing nerve. Outside, the generator hiccuped, a little cough like a man clearing his throat, and the flood's white dipped toward amber for the space of a heartbeat. The creature surged.
"Now."
The sluice lever dropped. Water rushed through the grate, sheeted across the boards, turning the floor into a shallow, shifting mirror. The Predator's hind feet skated, claws seeking purchase, failing.
Sam swung the second flood to bounce off foil blankets Alex had taped up, throwing backlight into corners. Edges disappeared. Depth went strange.
Alex held the strobe at 10, jaw clenched, blister heat printing her palms. "Stay with me," she whispered to the flash, to herself, to the room. The white multiplied, the mirrors multiplied, and in all those copies, the predator kept finding a version of itself that wasn't where it needed to be. It hesitated, the first honest mistake it had made all night.
Reeves took one step forward, shield up, eyes flat. Into the box.
It came. The doorway swallowed half of it. The floods crossed. The sluice roared. For a bare second it was committed, all weight inside, eyes blown wide against the white. The boathouse holds its breath. Something enormous has just crossed the line. The boathouse held its breath. Water hissed across the floor in a thin, relentless sheet. The sluice roared under the boards like a river trapped in a pipe. White light cut fences through the open door. One flood straight, one rebounding from foil, their rhythms slightly out of phase, never letting a single cadence settle. The predator was half in, half out, wrong shoulders hunched, forelimbs splayed like a letter learned by touch. It had chosen. It was committed.
Hold it in the geometry, Reeves said, voice level, body square behind the riot shield. No chasing. Make it solve what we give it. Sam hiked the spare flood 2 degrees higher. The back bounce from the mylar snapped brighter, carving a thin white edge along the creature's jaw. Its second eyelids shuddered and opened with a wet click. The eyes behind were too pale, too reflective, as if the pupils had chosen mirrors over pigment.
Alex kept the speedlight pressed to her cheek like a violin, counting beats in her head. 10 hertz, rest, 10 again. The hot electronic smell lifted off the plastic and braided into the river's algae and the copper salt sting that never left the night. The creature tested the light like a thief testing floorboards. It flattened to crawl under the beam, found water, found mirrors, found itself coming at itself from a dozen angles. It rose, tried high, met the back bounce from the foil and the strobed edges that sliced its depth into bad numbers. It made a sound then, not loud, but complicated. A layered roll that seemed to move through the boards and up the table legs, a vibration more than a noise. The generator hiccuped in sympathy and then steadied, stubborn as a heart that refused a new rhythm.
The sergeant had one boot braced on the sluice lever, jaw tight. "If it rushes, we drown the boards," he said, not because anyone needed the reminder, but because naming a lever made it bigger than panic. "On my say," Reeves said. "It'll try the cable next."
As if the words had taught it English, the creature slid along the flood's edge and struck low. Not a lunge, an erase. One hooked claw keystroked the cable's coil so gently that only the movement gave it away. Sam moved first. He kicked the loop flat with the toe of his boot and stepped onto the cable, his weight making a living cleat. The flood wavered, then held, throwing a clean line across the door.
"Not today," he said, and heard the steadiness as if it belonged to someone older.
Pop, pop, pop. Alex stitched cool rectangles across the threshold. The creature's head jerked with each frame. 2 degrees, 3, as if its inner ear had been given bad data.
"Good," Reeves murmured. "It hates flicker more than steady."
Something brushed Sam's cuff. No weight, no shape, just the idea of touch. He didn't flinch. He slid his other foot onto the cable and widened his stance, making the flood's shadow small. The creature changed tactics. It lifted its head and spoke in a voice that was almost Reeves's and almost kind. "Stand down, it's leaving."
Mark swore softly. A laugh wanted to break out of him the way a cough does, wrong and compulsive. "That's not funny." Reeves didn't blink. "It heard me once," he said. "It kept the shape of the words. It can't keep the breathing in them. Hear that empty?"
The mimicry tried again, sliding the syllables closer to human. "Alex, light off, breathe." Alex's hands trembled, but not from belief, from rage. "You don't get my name," she said, and tightened the strap on her flash so it bit her wrist and made the anger useful.
The sergeant flicked a glance at her, a half grin there and gone. "Good rule," he raised his voice. "Hughes, door left, Patel, right. If it goes out our front, not through our ribs."
The predator feinted for the left officer's ankle, quick as blink. The shield dropped. Claws skated on polycarbonate with a chirr that set teeth on edge.
"Back edge, don't overcorrect."
Pop, pop. Alex's strobe pinned the feint. The creature found itself 2 inches farther forward than it had meant to be and had to reverse awkward, like pride had bones.
Sam saw the opening not as a gap, but as a math problem. Weight inside the door, hinds on the wet, center of mass midline. Reeves now, he said, not loud but exact. Reeves moved like a line being drawn, shield low, knee driving, boot stamping the flood stand to steady it. "Sergeant!" The lever went over, water surged. The shallow mirror became a thin river racing toward the doorway and under the predator's weight. Its back feet slid. Its foreclaws gouged nothing in a board that had turned from floor to picture.
It made another sound then, something like a person trying not to cough in a church. The second eyelids flashed faster, compensating for a world that wasn't keeping still. It struck at the flood's face, not the beam, talons clicking on the lens with clinical intent. The flood rocked but held. Sam braced the stand with his shin and pushed back. The beam found the creature's throat and laid a hard white seam there.
"Alex," he said, "paint its left."
Pop, 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 pop. Left edge, left shoulder, left eye. The creature's head snapped with the rhythm and came to rest wrong by a thumb's width. That was enough.
"Mark!" Reeves barked. Mark didn't swing the bolt cutter so much as place it with force, short and ugly, right where the white seam marked the throat. The predator bucked. The cutter's rubber grip jumped in his hands. The impact thudded up his arms and set a tinnitus ring in his left ear. "God!" He staggered, recovered, teeth bared from something too close to terror to be named.
The creature came off the blow sideways and fast, not retreating but slicing for a new vector. The shield officer on the right overreached to cover. Claws hooked his rim again. Reeves dropped his own shield to half and jammed a boot onto the officer's heel to pin him to the boards. "Stay in the light," he hissed. "It wants the gap you leave."
Alex smelled burning plastic. The flash's heat warning pulsed an angry red. Pop, pop. The second burst lagged like a skipped heartbeat. "Two left before I cook it," she said, breath failing the steadiness her voice faked.
"Then we trade," Sam said. "On my call, you drop and I pick." He had the spare flood's trigger under his thumb, a cable looped twice around his forearm like a promise he could keep with muscle if the electronics failed.
From the doorway, the predator froze in a way that was not animal. Everything stilled except the eyes, which vibrated minutely between 2 points, as if it had found a calculation that gave 2 answers. It changed the problem. It stopped moving its body and moved the room instead. A soft tap sounded behind them, tick. Another to the left, tick. A third at the ceiling, tick. The pattern wasn't rhythm. It was expectations scraped just out of sync. The generator's note wanted to bend toward it and couldn't. The flood wanted to flicker and didn't. Their chests wanted to breathe in time with a beat that refused to name itself.
"Don't let it own your timing," Reeves said, and the sentence was a rope thrown over a wheel.
Alex made her decision on the exhale. "Trading," she said, and lifted the flash for the last good series. Pop, 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 pop. The smell of hot epoxy bit at the back of her nose. She dropped to a knee, killed the unit, and slid it across the wet boards to Sam.
Sam didn't take his eyes from the threshold. He let the spent weight thump to his shin and stayed on the flood, thumb degreeing the beam to keep the hard white seam on the throat. "New plan," he said. "Alternating floods. Left, right, then right, left. We stopped giving it the beat it wants." The sergeant didn't ask for doctrine. He gave them bodies. Hughes on Sam's mark. Patel, mirror the angle. We'll bounce his bounce.
They started the alternation. Left flood up, right dip, right up, left dip. Not a strobe, an argument between 2 metronomes that refused to agree. The white kept white, but the borders shifted in a way that stole the creature's prediction by half a second every time. It hated that more than strobe. It lunged, not for the door this time, not for the cable, but for Alex. A shallow rush along the mirrored floor, a boxer's slide. It had marked her hours ago when it brushed her cuff in the tunnel. The mark had a ledger of its own.
"Step into the light," Sam shouted.
Alex didn't retreat. She stepped forward inside the overlapping white so far that the edge lines ran up her shins. The predator's reach came up short by a clean handspan. Its claws hit water and mirror and copy, and found none of them true.
"Now." Reeves drove in, shield edge first, a short, mean shove that had nothing to do with heroics and everything to do with angle. He hit the chest, not the head. He hit where lungs wanted to be.
The impact knocked the creature deeper into the sluice flow. Water raced around its hocks. Its hindquarters slipped wide. The second eyelids fluttered to a stuttering white, then clamped hard. The generator coughed. For a heartbeat, the white slid toward amber, and in that single drop, the creature found every exit at once.
Mark saw it as a gap not bigger than a book. He threw his weight onto the spare flood stand, pinning it with knee and hip while his hands found the cable where it wanted to kink. No, he told the physics, and even the word had teeth. Sam pushed the main flood back into square. Hold. He felt the cable hum under his boot like a living thing and leaned his mass into it until it learned its place again.
Alex had a second unit, small, a camera body's built in that no one respected. She flicked it for one petty flash pop, a child's sparkler compared to the floods, and yet the spectrum was honest white. The creature flinched a fraction. Fractions added up.
Outside, something unseen ran its claws along the boathouse's side in a long, whispering stroke. It wasn't the predator. It was the night borrowing its hands. The sound wanted them to look. They did not. The creature tried mimicry again, Reeves's voice this time better than before. "Sam, cut the flood."
Sam laughed, a dry, surprised burst. "You're learning the wrong student." Reeves lifted his shield and spoke to the thing, not the room. "You don't get them," he said. "You were supposed to get me."
Then he did something no one expected. He dropped the shield entirely, just long enough to take one long step forward and offer his arm past the beam, wrist exposed to the cool white. A stupid, naked risk, but the kind of move that teaches a choice. The predator took the offer as if a spring had been loosed inside it. Head snapped, jaws widened, the wrong hinge showing, and met white so clean it was like a door closing. The alternating floods crossed in that instant. The back bounce hit the palate. The seam on the throat stayed hard. Alex's petty flash added a spiteful pinprick. The second eyelid slammed shut, and the jaws misjudged depth by inches, closing on water and mirror and pain.
"Now," the sergeant said, and threw the lever the rest of the way. The sluice roared up a tone, water surged around hocks and belly and then over. The floor became a river with opinions.
The creature lost its back feet. Its body tried to choose a direction and found 5. It twisted to ride the surge and met a cross-current at the door where the river funneled narrow. For a heartbeat, it hung there, a dark, muscled equation suspended above an answer it didn't like.
Sam and Mark hit together, shields and shoulders, not as heroes, but as weights. Reeves set his boot on the creature's forelimb and shoved with a malice he had earned.
Alex didn't fire. She couldn't. The camera body's little flash gave one last pathetic pop and died with a smell like dust on hot metal. She used the dead unit as a fist and hammered at the cable coupler to keep it tightened as the water tried to float it.
The predator went over. Not down like a stone, not clean. It fought the sluice with a mother's refusal, caught a brace with a forelimb, twisted, and the current turned that twist into a roll that ripped its purchase away. It vanished into the throat of the boathouse with a noise like a door slammed underwater. Silence did not return. The sluice still roared, the generator still hummed, their chests still sawed at the cold. But there was a lack where a presence had been.
Mark stood with his shield raised 3 inches higher than he needed to and did not lower it for a count of 20. "Is it—" He didn't finish the sentence because he did not believe in finishing it. Reeves kept staring at the black mouth where the water went. His eyes looked older now, not softer. "Gone," he said, "for now."
Alex leaned back against the bench and slid down it until she hit the wet boards. Her hands, when she looked at them, were trembling the way wires tremble after a struck note. "My flash is dead," she said, and then laughed because the smallness of the loss was a relief the size of a room.
The sergeant straightened the lever and let the flow settle to a mere rush. "We're posting 2 cars here until light," he said. "Floods stay on. If it crawls up the Thames to my front desk, I'm moving to Devon."
They turned the floods down, not off. The white eased to a sane cruelty. The generator found a steady note and held it, proud of itself the way machines get when the work suits their simplicity. The officers checked each other's shins and knuckles. They compared how silence sounded now to how it had before and found both bad and one preferable.
Sam went to the door and looked out at the river. The surface moved in small old men's arguments, eddies catching leaf litter and letting it go. Dawn had not begun, not even a rumor of it, but the far bank's black was lighter by some kind of promise. He tasted the air and found the copper salt still there, but thinner, like a story after its punchline.
Alex joined him, hip to hip, shoulder to shoulder. We heard it, she said, not with triumph, but with the relief of numbers. We didn't teach it that we were prey.
We taught it a different lesson, Sam said, that it has to learn us. Reeves crouched by the doorframe where the latch had raised itself. He studied the splinters where teeth had almost found purchase. It will, he said. That's what it does. And we'll be here, the sergeant said. And the way he said we meant 25 reports, 3 calls to other forces, a quiet favor to someone who knew a power engineer, and a line in a budget request he would be mocked for and would not cut.
Something bumped the sluice below with a hollow, distant knock. Everyone went still, eyes on the floor. The knock did not repeat. The river took its conversation elsewhere.
Mark finally lowered his shield. He stared at the dent where the claw had caught, and then at his hands. I thought I'd freeze, he said. I didn't. It was not pride. It was surprise at a stranger he had found in his own skull.
Alex flexed her fingers and winced. Blisters had raised at the base of thumbs where plastic and heat had pinched. She blew on them and then laughed at herself for the ritual, for the need to turn pain into steam with breath.
Sam crouched by the flood and tightened a knurled knob that didn't need tightening. His hands wanted work. If the lights go amber, we run toward white, he said, to no one, to everyone. If the power dips, we have our own. Reeves nodded without looking up. And we don't teach it our cadence. He rose, stiff, and picked up the shield again, running a thumb along the rim where the Talon had tried to learn it.
Time began to behave itself again. Outside, the city woke in small ways. A far siren that wasn't for them, the sigh of a bus, the clack of a cyclist's free hub somewhere upriver. The boathouse turned from a trap back into a room. They shut down one flood and left the other on a low, clinical wash. The generator chugged on like a farm thing set improbably in London.
Statements, the sergeant said at last, wincing at his own practicality. Photos, not of, he jerked his chin at the sluice, of the door, the floor, the equipment. I'm not writing ghost in the incident log, and neither are you.
Alex looked at her dead flash and then at the strip light overhead. You'll want white balance set to daylight, she said, automatic through exhaustion. If you file under tungsten, the edges won't read right.
The sergeant narrowed his eyes at her like she'd told him a secret. Daylight it is.
Reeves went to the threshold and stood with his boots just inside the line where the floor turned to outside. He didn't cross it. He lifted his face toward the river's dark and breathed the way a diver does before a long look.
I was supposed to be it, he said softly, to the night, to the teeth in it. You missed your chance. Sam joined him. You keep saying was. Reeves let out a breath that had spent a night under stone. Because I thought I'd die making the first good lesson. Turns out we made it together.
Alex leaned between them, chin propped on the back of her wrist. We'll need more than floods next time, she said. It'll bring a new math.
Then we bring a new proof, Sam said. He found himself smiling, not from joy, but from the relief of having a verb again.
They waited for dawn because dawn is both symbol and safety, and because people have always waited for light to see if they were, in fact, still in the world. When it came grudging. The sky peeled from black to used steel. Color crept back into the grass. The river became a thing with banks again instead of an intent. They stepped outside. Cold bit their cheeks. Breath smoked. The boathouse behind them looked ordinary, green door and all, as if a different building had hosted the night's lesson and left this one to take the credit.
The sergeant rubbed a hand over his face and became a man with a backlog. You'll give me names, he said to the 3 civilians, and numbers, and if I find you back in this park after dark without me, I'll arrest you for your own stupidity. Mark nodded. Arrest away, he said. I'm retiring from night walks. He looked at the river, then lied in the small, honest way people do at dawn. For a week.
Alex squinted into the thin sun and flexed her hands again. I need a new flash, she said, then added quieter. 2.
Sam looked at Reeves. We're not done, are we? No, Reeves said. He didn't make it a doom. He made it a weather report. But it learned the feel of white and of water and of wrong timing. Those are good hurts.
A cormorant broke the river's skin and lifted into the new light, water threading from its wings like shredded glass. It banked once and was gone toward the weir, toward noise. From the sluice below came one last, far knock. No echo, just a tension. The kind of sound you hear in plumbing and blame on pipes. No one spoke. No one looked at the sergeant for a rational line to stand on.
Reeves pulled his parka tighter and started up the path. "Come on," he said without turning. "Let's walk the perimeter while it's honest." Sam fell in beside him. "Tell me the rest of the rules." Reeves counted on scarred fingers as they went. "It tests first, not hardest. It likes edges, hates centers. It marks what it wants and waits for you to step out of the light. If you can't tell whether a sound is behind you or above you, it's beside you. If the world offers you amber, you bring your own white."
Alex caught up, hands jammed into her coat like she could keep the night out of her wrists. "And if it talks?"
"You ask it to breathe between words," Reeves said. "Things with lungs answer, things with tricks don't."
They walked the bank as the park yawned itself awake. Dog walkers at a distance like moving commas. Joggers that would become people when they were nearer. The three of them moved as if tethered, the space between their shoulders a small, stubborn republic that the night no longer owned. They didn't look back at the boathouse. The boathouse would keep until noon, and the noon after that. The river would hold its counsel. The city would pretend not to know the new rule it had learned before breakfast, that white was not just color but boundary, and that mirrors could make a mouth drown.
Sam lifted his face to the thin sun and let his eyes water until the world held a margin again. "We're going to need a lot of batteries," he said.
"And 2 generators," Alex said.
"And a lawyer," Mark added, because someone had to say the thing the day would require. Reeves's mouth bent toward something that almost learned to be a smile. "And time," he said. "We'll spend it better than it does."
They left tracks on the frosted towpath that looked like lines on a palm. The sun found them, thin but enough. The air tasted less of metal and more of morning. Somewhere under Richmond Park, in dark channels, where men had once decided the river needed straightening, a thing that had learned the edges of white and the weight of water turned itself in a narrow place and listened for a new cadence to break. It was not finished. Neither were they. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, ring the bell, and tell your friends about my listening library.